President Joe Biden randomly decided to attack one of our allies and refer to an entire country and its government as xenophobic. Now, the comments were made during a campaign fundraiser. Biden was specifically discussing the lack of economic growth in Japan, which of course is one of our allies. And he bragged about how immigration has actually helped the economy here in the United States, stating, think about it. Why is China stalling so bad economically? Why is Japan having trouble? Why is Russia? Because they're xenophobic. They don't want immigrants. So understandably, most of the focus in response to what Biden said centers on Japan because of the fact that Japan is such a close ally of ours. But he mentioned India. Isn't India? No, it's not in that comment, but apparently he also mentioned India at one point. India is also an ally of ours, and when you list all those countries, they're having economic issues for different reasons. I mean, Russia invaded another country, and they're using up their resources to fight that war. I'm sure that's part of it, and they're dealing with economic sanctions. Like, it's just weird to mention xenophobia in this context. But when it comes to Japan, he was talking about their strict immigration laws, which Denmark also has, by the way. I would know because I looked into it. Cenk, what do you think?
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you. You know another ally that's potentially xenophobic? Israel. I mean, you want to talk about keeping 5.5 million hostages for 57 years because you don't trust them. You think they're violent by nature, and if you release them, thereby admitting kind of they're your prisoners, well, they would definitely attack you because they're violent savages who hate all Jews forever and ever, etc. But no, of course you can never mention that. But okay.
Well, I'm gonna mention that because it's funny you brought that up, Cenk. This week, an ex-IDF soldier engaged in a debate with Brianna Joy Gray on The Hills Rising, and he openly admitted to something that I thought was fascinating. Let's take a look.
We are refugees, and of course we have sympathy, and that's why I'm saying that I support Palestinian rights, because I don't think that they deserve to be living without state. And I love the fact that there's 2 million Palestinians living inside Israel, that are Israeli Arabs, and they have equal rights within Israel, while there are 0 Jews living in Iraq when there was 150,000 people living there.
That's a good point. So why then is it okay for those 2 million Palestinians to live in Israel, but the 5 million Palestinians that live in Gaza and the West Bank can also be a part of Israel and enjoy those same rights and privileges?
I think that they have national identity that they have created, and it's Palestinian national identity. I don't think they're seeing themselves as Israelis. If you ask them if they want to be Israelis, I'm sure most of them wouldn't want to. And I think it will also change the makeup of Israel, and Israel will not be a Jewish state.
Xenophobic? I don't know.
Look, I get it. They want to keep it as a Jewish state. That's why I'm in favor of a 2-state solution. But then you can't pretend that you're open to everyone. You just can't.
No, you can't call one of our allies xenophobic, criticize them, like you're literally calling an ally xenophobic. You might not like their immigration policies, that's fine. And you might want to encourage them to open up the country, open your mind, allow people in, that is fine. But you can't use a word like xenophobe or xenophobic toward an ally of ours, as you are literally sending bombs and billions of dollars to a country that engages in the same behavior.
No, way worse.
Well, way worse. I mean, I'm not saying Japan is doing what Israel's doing, but I'm saying immigration-wise, yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, it's not just against Palestinians. Jews from different parts of the world have faced some xenophobia inside of Israel, like African Jews, et cetera, and that's been well reported too. Okay, but guys, this overall, look, I get what Biden is saying, that some countries have closed themselves off and that's not an advantage, and that it's better, that our model is better when we're open to everyone, right? So that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a very ham-handed way of saying it, because you're gratuitously, seemingly attacking one of our allies, which you wouldn't do in other contexts. That's part of the reason that we bring up Israel. And it's what's interesting about it too, is that you always get these stories of what Biden said, and then we got to give you quotes. There is a video why, because they're always at private fundraisers.
Yeah.
That's basically the only place he ever goes and talks to people. He's willing to share that with the people he actually serves, which are his donors.
So just to give you some more information about what's happening in Japan, and by the way, you're the president of the United States, and this is an ally. So again, I want to reiterate, instead of calling them names, if you want to help our ally in improving their economic situation by bringing in more immigrants to increase their labor pool, then you do that through positive reinforcement, through encouragement. You don't call them xenophobes. Anyway, but by the way, a representative from Japan visited the United States and hung out with Biden just 3 weeks ago. How about you have a conversation in that context? Anyway, so it is true that Japan is struggling somewhat economically. So once the second largest economy in the world, Japan said in March that its economy grew at an annual rate of 0.4% in the last quarter of 2023, up from an initial estimate of a 0.4% contraction, which would have put it in a technical recession. Japan, a country of 125 million people, has in fact been trying to attract foreign workers, but what's kind of standing in their way is just how strict their immigration laws are. It's really difficult for people to gain permanent residency. So in March, the Japanese cabinet approved legislation that would more than double the cap on foreign skilled workers to more than 800,000 and replace an internship program with a training system for unskilled foreign workers that could provide for medium to long-term residency, local media reported. And to maintain economic growth, the country will need 6.74 million foreign workers by 2040, the Japan International Cooperation Agency said in a 2022 report, and that's up from 2.05 million in the country as of October. And look, what I'll say is, I think what we're seeing in Japan in regard to their shrinking labor pool is something that you're seeing around the world with lowering birth rates. And I do think that that's part of what's motivating some of these anti-abortion bills in red states. They don't want more immigrants to come in to expand the labor pool. They want people to have babies and restrict immigration and rely on the labor pool that we have here by American citizens. And so I remember doing stories with you years ago, Cenk, about the issues in Japan with people not wanting to get married. There was a subculture of young men who would enter relationships with literal inanimate objects.
Pillows, robots.
Yeah, and it's actually pretty heartbreaking, right? And part of it is also because of the intense work culture that they have in Japan. So that is a core issue that needs to be dealt with, not by coercion or restrictive reproductive laws, but what do we need to do in society so people feel connected to one another again?
Yeah, and so look, I'm not the president, so I could say anything I want about allies. And so the reality is that a lot of the old world is racist, okay? And so I don't say that in an attacking kind of way. I'm just keeping it real with you guys. From the old world, everybody that's a particular ethnicity thinks they're the greatest in the world, right? And that everybody else is roughly inferior, and they have a sense of how inferior they are, usually based on skin color, etc. So it's not, if you've never left a country or you don't know about it or you have a romantic vision of the rest of the world, no, trust me, they have just as much racism as we do. Yes, in our case, the slavery was out of control and was worse in a lot of ways for a long, long period of time. Probably these days, the old world is worse than we are. And that's why they also block immigration. And that's among the reasons why they don't want their culture diluted, which is a lot of the similar language. And as a general thing, conservatives by nature in whatever country they're in don't like change. And immigrants with new cultures bring some degree of change. So what I don't want is right wing or otherwise saying, well, if Japan is doing it, then it's okay. No, it's not okay if they do it or we do it.
I'm gonna say something that I'm sure people are either gonna misinterpret or they're not gonna like it even if they interpret it correctly, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So look, I've done research into what the immigration laws are in Scandinavian countries, because Scandinavian countries look lit, I'm not gonna lie, okay? So there have been times in my life where I'm like, maybe I do what I need to do and enter a Scandinavian country, become a citizen, Obviously I'm not gonna do that, but Part of the reason why I'm not gonna do that is because their immigration laws are super strict. And you wanna know why they're super strict, Jake? Because they have a robust social safety net that is paid for by the citizens. They pay a lot in taxes in order to have that social safety net. And so when immigrants come in and they haven't paid into that system, they see that as unfair, which is why they're very restrictive with immigration.
Yeah, I get it. And guys, there's a legitimate reason to be wary of the level of immigration that we allow, and an illegitimate reason, and oftentimes they get conflated. And our job is to give you that complexity and nuance. In this case, Biden didn't do very much nuance, and it wound up costing him because now he's in another kerfuffle of his own making because he says things that he shouldn't say. Finally, for our members, I'm going to tell you a hilarious story of Turkish-Korean wedding and the old school world racism that goes along with it. If you haven't heard that story, you're gonna love it. So tyt.com/team or hit the join button below and we'll tell you all about it if you're a member. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.